welcome. So I will start by saying thank you to both of you for joining, and thank you to anyone who will be watching this video in the future. So thank you for joining us to learn more about Neuchâtel Junior College. Neuchâtel Junior College, or NJC as we call it, is a Canadian school offering grade 12 Ontario curriculum. But what is really unique is that our school is situated in Neuchâtel, Switzerland. And so NJC students have the unique opportunity to study and travel in Switzerland and in a typical year all over Europe as part of their co-curricular educational travel, independent travel. And what they do is they have a chance to learn more about the world and about themselves. The students come from all over Canada. They also come from countries outside of Canada. And they live with host families, or what we call pension families. So they have a true Swiss cultural immersion. The students are involved in clubs and leadership opportunities, and during that time they're improving or perfecting their French skills, because French tuition or French instruction is part of the program overall. And most of the students are in their last year of high school, so they're completing their grade 12 with us and their Ontario secondary school diploma. We do have students who come for a year or a semester as part of a gap year. And the other thing is that the school creates a really close-knit community, and the students get to know each other really well, experiencing their time abroad, and they make lifelong friendships. So it's my pleasure to introduce you today to two members of the NJC community. We have Julia, who is a recent graduate, who's part of the class of 2021, recently returned from Switzerland. Julia came to NJC for her grade 12 year, and as well some gap year time at NJC. And Julia is originally from Cyprus, but was a student in Canada before joining us. Hi, Julia, and welcome.
Hi.
Okay, also joining us is Wendy, who is the mother of Hannah, who is a graduate of the class of 2019, and Oscar, who is a classmate of Julia's, who just returned from Switzerland as well, as part of the class of 2021. So hi, Wendy, and welcome to you too, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna get started. We're gonna ask a few questions of Julia first, and then we'll move on to talk to Wendy following that. So Julia, why don't you tell us, in your time at NJC, what was the thing that you most appreciated about your time there?
Well, I believe for almost all students, the automatic answer is the teachers. It's usually always the teachers, as well as our headmaster and the other staff, which really took care of us while we were at NJC. Because I think overall, all of the students felt like they had almost like a family abroad when it came down to the relationship that we built with both our teachers as well as the community there. So that extended onto like our pension families, our host families who take care of us. It really was, I would say, an experience where you felt like you were more than just a student. You were more than just, a community or a graduate class. It felt really more like you were part of a family. So even now, looking back on it, the friendships I created with my teachers, especially, were some of the most unique, friendships that I've created in my entire life. And I still keep contact with a lot of my teachers and a lot of my friends that I've made throughout the year now, and I still see them whenever I can. So it's something I really appreciate about NJC, really, is just how closely bonded you can become over the course of 1 year, where I think, my previous high school, as well as my previous experiences in school, those relationships take a lot of time to build. Whereas, NJC catalyzed all of that into one academic year, which I found astounding in hindsight.
Great. Okay. So I know you've only been back for a little while, but looking backwards, I know there's not a ton of the question is really about looking in perspective and the distance now that you've had some time away, but maybe talk a little bit about that, but also sort of how you see that in terms of how it will propel you forward when you're in your next adventure. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think looking back on the relationships that I built at NJC, they really allowed me to figure out this sort of friend group and the sort of community that I wanted to become a part of in the future. Because they were friendships that were built not because you were kind of put in one place together, or that you met them when you were a child and you grew up together. It was definitely more a friendship or a community built out of experiences, out of experiencing travel together, experiencing a whole new country, a whole new language. And I realize now, going into university, the type of friends that I want to have are also people who really want to experience, the most of their environment, who want to experience the most of their country and community, and travel especially. And going forward, also with my teachers, I realized that our mentors and our teachers and professors in my university years are also people. I think a lot of people have a bit of a fear going into university that they're not going to be able to talk with their professors, they're not going to be able to relate to them as adults. And I think NJC was an environment where it was still, teacher-student relationships, but there was a lot more trust and a lot more maturity involved when it came down to, finding ways to compromise on, projects and things that, are personal as well. Like, you can talk to your teachers, you can talk to those who are responsible over you or those who are teaching you quite openly. And even though you have the boundaries of, respect as well as, admiration for your teachers, etc., it's definitely eye-opening, I think, to have, relationships built on communication and honesty with your professors and teachers, and knowing that they too are human, that they're not like a scary looming figure trying to find faults. So
okay, what about what do you think most differentiates? You talked a little bit about the relationships and the connectedness that you have with your classmates and your teachers, but what about maybe academically or the program in general? What do you think differentiates NJC from another school?
So academically, NJC, I think, has the strongest support group I've ever witnessed, not only in my own school, but, my friends, etc. Because grade 12 is a hard year when it comes down to, picking your programs and, meeting your requirements for university. And it makes a universe's difference to have that support. I think academically, especially, I know that a lot of my teachers had like office hours that you could go to, you could work with them personally one-on-one. And there was not a single time where I felt like I couldn't go up to my teacher and ask them to spend more time with me. And I think a lot of that, again, is based on the fact that there are smaller class sizes, and it's not a normal school where just time is always restricted in a way. I felt in terms of academics and extracurriculars, there was a lot of opportunities to go see your teachers and start activities. And when it came down to extracurriculars, I personally was a part of the band. I love music, and things like music and sports, etc. You're not restricted to following one plan, one legacy when it comes down to clubs and sports. If you're interested in something and there's another 3-4 students who are also interested, the school is very, very receptive in, making that happen. Which again, I think has to do with how flexible the school is, because, they're very invested into each student, as opposed to it's not a huge school community. So you really get to know people one-on-one. And once a certain group of students, each year it changes. Each year there's a different sort of group of people who are perhaps more into arts and sports. Other years they're huge hockey fans and, they want to be a part of the local sports, for example. So I would say definitely, talking to teachers and talking to other students to figure out, what it is that you want to initiate in the school is really important. But yeah, I really love that part of NJC as well, the support in that regard.
Great. Okay. Now, this is a question about if you had to describe the school as a single person, and we had a little bit of a side chat about that. If somebody asked you to introduce NJC at a party, what would be the words you would use? What are the characteristics? If you have to use only 3 words, let's hear.
Only 3 words. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say adventurous as the first one, because that is the essence of the school. You really do have so many opportunities to see things that you would never see in any other country, I think, or opportunity. Adventurous, curious, because I think curiosity in Neuchâtel extends beyond Neuchâtel. It goes to like all of Switzerland, because if you're curious about the places and the people, there are ways that you can integrate yourself, and there are ways that you can go and get a train and go anywhere in Switzerland really to go explore. You aren't restricted in that regard. So yeah, curious and thoughtful. I think being thoughtful in a community where you are a small group, you are, a group under usually 50, 60 students, or less in COVID year, you really have to be considerate of, how you form those friendships and those relationships. And I think both the school and the community that I was a part of was really good about that. People were very good about, making sure that everyone was included, making sure everyone got an opportunity to go places and, have trips together, and everyone planned things together. I think being thoughtful in a way where you're making the most of your experience and you're making the most of your time together as, as one graduating class in a foreign country is a big deal. So being curious, doing things together, being thoughtful about your friendships, as well as, taking the initiative, being proactive about being adventurous and experiencing what there is to offer is the essence of my experience, at least at NJC.
Great. Okay. What do you think families would find surprising, didn't expect about NJC?
Oh, okay. So I think even I was really pleasantly surprised by this. The amount of trust between the sort of teacher / pension family, the host family, and the students. And it's not blind trust. It's not, you're like left to do your own thing. It's more so the relationship of give and take in terms of trust. You show that you're responsible, and then you're given more trust, and you're given more flexibility in terms of, what you can and can't do. And I think how personalized that is something my family wasn't expecting and I wasn't expecting, but we were very happy. Because if you are also a bit more independent, or you're going into university and you're seeking, not exactly like a stereotypical boarding school experience, which is I think the reason why some people are surprised by this. It's not a blueprint of a boarding school where you're sort of more under watch. I would say you're not under the eyes of your housemasters, etc. all the time. It's not a matter of them trying to restrict really what you do. It's more so teaching you how to be responsible, teaching you how to balance your school as well as your travel and things that you do want to do outside of your academic experiences. So I think I was really happy to learn that my teachers, for example, they trusted us enough to let us do our work. For example, they knew that we would do our work. They knew that we would be responsible and that we were working hard. And so things like travel and things like if you have to get an extension or something, there's something there that needs to be considered. They knew us. They weren't immediately saying no. It was more so a consideration of, okay, who are you? And what have you proven so far? Have you proven that you're responsible? Have you proven that you can be independent in your travel? Things like that, I think, were really great because it made me personally feel like I was approaching adulthood without being completely let go. You still get that support. You still have everything there. They're almost like your parents. They check up on you. But you are given the trust to also have your own life outside of school if you wish.
Great. Okay, so we're about to send off a group of new students in about 10 days or so to Switzerland. They're meeting us from all over. What would you give them as a piece of advice? What would you say?
Oh, it's hard to believe they're going already.
Mm-hmm. They're very excited, but nervous too, of course. So tell us what you would say to that.
I would say, you know that you're part of something that you're going to be, you're going to be experiencing, you're going to be part of for the rest of the year. And everyone is there for the same reason. I mean, everyone is there to experience this program, this incredibly unique program where
Mm-hmm.
you're going there to travel, but you're also going there to experience, independence in a country that is beautiful, that has so many opportunities to go, to provide you with, adventurous as well as academic and intellectual, activities, etc. So I would say, if you're going in, do a little bit of research, into the town, into the city, into Neuchâtel. Look at all the places that you want to see, that you want to go explore, and then just ask people. I mean, everyone is there because they want to see these places and they want to explore, and everyone is new. I mean, in my experience, very, very few. I don't think anyone actually knew each other before they came into Neuchâtel. I don't think, beyond, knowing someone's name or living in the same city, it wasn't like people came in as a group. So, everyone is very willing to make friends. That first bus ride from the airport is going to be, can be daunting, but the minute you break the ice, the minute you say hello or make a joke, it melts so quickly. So I would say, if you can, if you're willing to, be proactive, find a place you want to go to, ask people if they want to go explore, and I bet you everyone will say yes.
Great. Okay, Julia, why don't you just give us a quick summary of where you're headed to next?
I'm at University of Toronto. I'm in the life science program. I just moved into my apartment here, so I'm very happy. And going forward, I'm going into my first year here, and I'm taking a variety of courses because I took politics for the first time at NJC, and I fell in love with it there as well. So I'm exploring my options currently. But again, I'm excited for the academics to begin.
Great. Okay, thank you. All right, Wendy, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you originally chose NJC? Now you probably have different reasons for each of your kids. One,
yes, actually,
a girl, one a boy. So go ahead.
two different reasons. To be honest, my husband had gone to a similar school in the south of France for his, back then was grade 13. That school is no longer open, but the kids kind of always grew up him telling stories about his, that time in his life and how great it was. He still thinks of it as one of the best years of his life. And then as our kids were getting older, a really good friend of ours' daughter was going to NJC. And as my friend Sarah would say, my daughter couldn't plan a trip to Baskin Robbins before NJC. And then after graduating NJC, she was like booking all these traveling plans and complicated schedules. And I really just hearing her talk and just to see the growth of our family friend, I thought, wow, what a great experience. That would be really helpful to my eldest, Hannah, at the time. And it really proved to be true for her completely. And so Oscar, having watched her and having heard Barry talk about it, and seeing, he came over to the graduation for Hannah. And I think that's what really made him flip the switch that he wanted to go, is he heard of all of these interesting places that all of these students were going. I mean, all over the place in all different kinds of programs and things like that. And he thought, wow, like these are pretty interesting people that come here if they do such broad, extensive schools and programs all over the world. And so for him, that really made him want to go and made us really happy that we could be able to let him go.
Great. What about, in what ways is the school what you expected? And what ways do you find it was not?
Well, I think, well, I mean, it's a difficult in one sense because we were in a COVID year.
For sure.
Right. What I did love about even in a COVID year, and Julia, I hope you can support me on this. Like I found, even though the parents couldn't come over, because with Hannah, we were able to go over for Parents Weekend and the Zermatt trip and graduation. We didn't get any of those experiences. And what happened with the parents is we kind of put it upon ourselves that we needed to get our own little community together because our children were all together, but we didn't really know the parents. And I have actually become very, very close, good friends with a lot of Oscar's friends and their parents, which is odd considering I never physically met anyone. So that's been really, really interesting. In terms of what I didn't expect was just, and I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way. I don't want to say it's an exclusive club, but my kids are like, when you see people and they're driving a motorcycle and they always nod at the other people that are driving the motorcycle, it's like, oh, NJC. Like it's and I don't want to make it like it's prestigious club. It's just like, there's this wink with anybody that went to NJC. And I know that like at Queen's, they get together and have like in the fall, they'll have like all NJC alum, Saturday night drinks together with all different years and discuss what their NJC time was like. And I know some of the other schools so I think I hadn't expect that kind of long kind of like wink. We're all part of the NJC community. It's pretty great, I have to say.
I can understand it. Thing in common that you've experienced. Yeah, for sure. Okay, what about, would you say is the biggest impact the school has had on each of your kids?
What I would say for both of my children, and my kids are very, very different personalities. I think the biggest impact would really be that they are academically and socially prepared for university. I felt like, I think both of my kids would have been fine having graduated here and then gone off to university, but having gone to NJC and sending them off to university, I know they're fine. I had no qualms about it. Like, so Hannah went on to McGill, which is, again, out of province, not that far, but Oscar's off to Edinburgh. So he literally came home from Switzerland and he is off to Edinburgh for the next 4 years of his life. And I don't know if he would have thought of Edinburgh had he not gone there. And I mean, it's one of the best universities in the world. And, he's confident enough to go to a country where he really, he knows actually another NJC student is going there, different programs, but really knows no one else at all and feels completely confident in himself and his ability to just, take on that next adventure and thrive academically. And he's very prepared to do so.
Great. Okay. So what would they say if you asked? If I asked them, like we've asked Julia, what would they say about the school? What do you think?
Again, the connections and the community, like it would be the first thing that they would say. Just this sense of, I mean, both of my kids have found lifelong mates. Right. Now I know Oscar just came home, but he's like, these are my mates for life, particularly Max, his housemate, who was only there for one September over front semester, and was so needing to come back. He went off to do another adventure for part of the thing, and yet insisted that he came back for the graduation. And the school was so great because they let him graduate again, with all the students and participate as if he was, there the whole year. He moved back into the Pension family's house. And it was like, he wanted so badly to be back, to be part of that community. And, it really is it's just the connection to the whole thing, the Pension families, the teachers, the friends, all of it. Switzerland.
Okay. I have to ask you the question about how you would introduce NJC at a party. If it was a person, the school was a person, what would be the personality traits that you would use to describe the school?
Yeah, so I've struggled with this, as you know, because there's just so much to say and what's a trait versus a personality. But very similar answer, which is, very adventurous and courageous. And you know, you have to have an open-mindedness too, just to kind of say that, particularly this year, our kids went over there expecting one thing, which was all this travel through Europe, and they got caught giving a curveball after curveball after curveball, that they could not do all of these things. And yet, I think in some ways, they got to see Switzerland more than probably any other NJC's grade ever. They know Switzerland better than any of them. And they kind of were like, you know what, we're in our pandemic, but hey, we're in Switzerland. We can be together. The school was so committed to in-class learning, which if they had been back here in Canada, they would have been doing so much remote learning. They just wouldn't have had that scheduling of getting up every day, you know, going to school, you know, having that whole experience. So again, in terms of personality, I guess you'd have to say like a happy heart. It's just willing to be, you know, willing to take what's given to you and make lemonade out of lemons.
Absolutely.
Which I think, and I hope you can back me up on that. That's what I got out of your grade this year, Julia, was that no matter what, it was like, okay, what now? That's great. We'll do that then.
Anything you guys would change about the school? I mean, other than obviously the situation with COVID this year. So anything you would say you would change? Wait, do you want to, Julia, do you want to answer that? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'll go first. That's hard because I feel like I just loved NJC so much that, you know, I think the only thing that really sort of disappointed the students was just COVID. And that was just a global experience. So it was really hard to differentiate between almost like the misfortunes that we would have because of that and anything else. I would say suggestion-wise, I know that especially because NJC is an English-speaking school in Neuchâtel, and Neuchâtel does not have that many English, resources. It does, but it's more so, not really on a local scale. I would say, you know, I know that there's a school in Neuchâtel that does work with the NJC school during the year usually. So, you know, initiatives with them, things like if there is a music club there, you know, we could do activities in clubs, and I'm sure that would be possible after COVID as well. So, you know, I'm not too aware if that was, you know, a thing before this year, because I'm not sure if music was as big of a, experience, as much of a shared activity in previous years. But, you know, people have shared passions over sports and music and art and things like that. So I would say, maybe that involvement could be a good way to get students integrated.
Great. Did Hannah have a chance in her time, Wendy, to interact more within the Neuchâtel community outside of school?
Not particularly. I mean, she did a lot of traveling. I mean, she was every weekend was going somewhere doing something. So not so much. And Oscar didn't either, obviously, because of COVID. In terms of, you know, again, I think what Oscar's wish list is very unique to Oscar and not to most students. Like he would love to have more of a, like, you know, Oscar being Oscar, like a debate club or business team building, you know, but I think again, that's very, it's just unique to Oscar. I don't know how many.
Well, and I think both Julia and Oscar participated in the Model UN, right? And you both worked for the Canadian consulate. So
yes,
unique opportunity too.
Oscar and I spent lots of time together.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of the things. Pardon?
I'm so happy to have met you, because I spent quite a bit of time with Oscar this past year.
Yes. Well, I think with Oscar, it takes about a week to understand what he's saying, because he's so fast. Like when he came home, when he came home again, it's like, dude, like, it's like, I don't know if it's just that he can't get it out fast enough. I don't know, but he's got to slow down.
Okay, one more question for Wendy about the values of the school and the values of the family. So one of the sort of best kept secrets about NJC is that a lot of students talk about, families talk about, is you actually get to meet some incredible people who send their kids to NJC. And as you said, in a normal year or a typical year, you would get to meet them in person. But what would you say would be the common values among those families, the ones that you've had a chance to meet?
common values, it's actually very, I mean, we're all very different people, but very similar in terms of just everybody wanting and being able to give their children the opportunity to attend this school, this fabulous place. And I don't even know if it's a value, it's just more like trying to raising your children so that when an opportunity like this comes your way, you take advantage of every single thing that comes, that you can take advantage of it. And everybody has, all the parents have this really wonderful, soulful spirit about them. Like we all want this great experience for their children. And it really is amazing. And I mean, both my kids attended the same schools for very long periods of time. And I always had a sense of community within those schools. But it was really because you met them on the playground when they were little, and you know, you had play dates where you dropped them off and picked them up. This is a school where your children do not need you at all for anything other than the allowance. Right? Like they organize their lives, they travel, like they don't need you. And so I think for the parents, it's like we kind of still need our children, and we form our own community. And I know with Hannah's year, again, because we could be over there so much, like, I mean, we had just some of the greatest times and really great friends that we still keep in touch with from Hannah's year. And with Oscar, ironically, never spending time with these people, I've got this little community of parents. And I think just in terms of value, I think that what the parents did this year, the grants particularly, what they could do and have us as a parent group contribute to the school as a legacy gift for proving how much, even during a COVID year, our kids did not get the experience that they had wanted to. You know, we raised so much money for the purpose of hoping that more kids can have this opportunity. And when we told the other parents that, you know, this wasn't going for infrastructure or new teachers or, you know, any of those things, this is about really setting aside real money to give this opportunity to more children. I mean, parents dug very deep this year, which I think says a lot about their values and how they value the school and what they believe, is just such a wonderful place. It really is.
Okay, a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Pension experience. So a lot of kids are hesitant about going to live in another country, in another family, you know, without sort of the things that they're used to in terms of the way their houses are, the comforts of home, just going into a different environment. Julia, you want to tell us a little bit about your pension experience and how that went for you? And maybe Wendy, you can tell us what your kids have told us about theirs. Go ahead.
Yes, so I was incredibly lucky because I had my pension family for the entire time. My entire NJC experience was with one family, which is usually the case, but because I did sort of a gap year and grade 12, I got the same family both times. My pension family was an elderly couple, a husband and wife. I called them my Swiss grandparents. I almost exclusively refer to them as my grandparents to my actual parents, which is quite funny because my pension family didn't know too much French, didn't know too much English. I apologize. But I remember the first 2 weeks especially. Google Translate was my best friend. Me and my flatmate thankfully spoke a bit of French as well. But I mean, it really didn't make a difference. I mean, you could go in there knowing no French in the world. I mean, you could honestly learn so much French in the first month, purely from your pension family, purely from trying to talk to them at the dinner table, trying to, you know, find words for towel and bed sheets and, you know, dryer, things like that. I don't know if I was just incredibly lucky or if, you know, the school is just very good at finding host families. But my host family, I think, was the closest to, you know, family that I have, you know, experienced outside of my own. And in terms of, you know, how hospitable they were, how thoughtful they were, the fact that they would, you know, drive us to school if we missed the tram with no thoughts. They would buy us, you know, specific chocolate and specific bread because they knew we liked it. And you know, my experience, I think, was, you know, I've heard it in other pension families as well, that they were this close, but especially in my experience, I think that spending time with your host family, like I spent quite a lot of time with my host family because I was here over Christmas. I was in Switzerland for the Christmas break as well as, you know, the academic term, which meant, you know, every dinner, every activity, etc., was with my host family, and that made a world's difference as well. I mean, I think that the host family, you know, they're giving you food and they're giving you dinner and they're giving you a room. But on top of that, you know, a lot of them are really fascinated by our lives and they're really fascinated about our NJC experience. And, you know, especially if you have, you know, an older host family, they tend to, you know, like the excitement of having, you know, teenagers with their lives and experiences around the house. So it was great. I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I think that it was definitely worth trying. You know, it was definitely worth experiencing before going to university, because it kind of also teaches you how to live with, you know, a lot of different people that you've never met before, that you are sort of, you know, coexisting with in the beginning. And then you learn to build those friendships and you learn to build those relationships with people from scratch. Yeah.
Okay, great. Wendy, did you want to talk about?
Yeah, so my kids had very different experiences, both good. My Hannah lived with a single older woman who was sweet and lovely, and Hannah really, really adored her. But they didn't do like things on weekends or things like that, but they just had a wonderful relationship. And Oscar, this was perfectly suited for Oscar, which is his pension family. They owned the whole apartment flat. So he would have dinners, him and Max would just have dinners with the family. But then they would go upstairs like 3 floors to a different flat where there was just 2 rooms in their bathroom and kind of had like their own apartment, right? So they literally could come and go as they pleased. I mean, they never broke curfew, but they could have type of thing, because they could just had all this freedom. So that's what really was so great for Oscar, because that's really was so perfectly suited for him. I mean, it was really sad when Max left, because it was so great to have him there. But they got along really, really well with his pension family, and they were sweet and lovely. But he really got to have his own place, his own space, which he was very happy to have.
Terrific. Is there anything else either one of you wanted to share or say that you think would be something people would want to know about the school?
So is there just anything extra about the school or anything?
Yeah, or anything you wanted to say that you wanted to add that I didn't get to ask, you think people should know?
So I think, okay, I'm just like, there's so many things I want to say, but to cut it short, the friends that I made at Neuchâtel, they were by far, I think, the most genuine people I've ever met. And I don't know if that's because it takes a certain character to really take a leap to go into, you know, a whole new country, a whole new school. You know, you have to be really willing to make friendships and be open with people. But, you know, I had the opportunity to be part of both the class of 2021 with Oscar and my other friends, but I was also